我没有听到那个画面里的声音哎。
We can see the whole sphere, a great, gigantic blue ball covered with a white lace of clouds.
你听告诉我好不好？
Spectacular.
你看直播有没有声音？他现在在片头嘞。对啊，但是我没有声音啊。
You see the curve of the Earth, and you see that the atmosphere is so tiny and thin compared to this planet.
没听到。
And you understand that, wow, there's not that much there that's protecting us from the vacuum of space.
Here you are going 17,000 miles an hour over this incredibly beautiful planet. And here's this thin blue iridescent band, this little bitty thin atmosphere, everything that enables life to exist on this amazing ball of rock flying through space.
他那边要推。
Our planet is changing. Since the late 19th century, the Earth has already warmed at least 1 degree Celsius. And we are seeing the devastating impacts. More severe weather, catastrophic events, and challenges to our lives and livelihoods. How much warmer our planet gets and how severe the impacts will be is up to us. The next decade is critical. We must change the course we're on in order to limit the rise in global temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. If we succeed, we will protect the most vulnerable, preserve ecosystems and wildlife, reduce our exposure to extreme heat and storms, create a healthier, more equitable world, and create new economic opportunities for all. The challenges are clear, but so are the solutions. The question is, how do we move fast enough to keep the world on track to limit the rise in global temperatures?
In my view, we've already waited too long to deal with this climate crisis. We can't wait any longer.
How do we make bigger, bolder changes than ever before?
Governments must deliver the transformational change our world needs and that people demand with much stronger ambition.
How do we create new economic opportunities and ensure a just transition?
Certainly, we face an unprecedented crisis, but also an unprecedented opportunity to build back better, a healthier, more productive and more resilient societies. We must step up to this challenge.
How do we create a more sustainable future for people and the planet?
I'm emboldened by my faith that together, with compassion and commitment, we can all emerge from the present storm transformed.
We know we must, and we know the time to act is now. We must go faster and further than ever before.
To bring countries of the world together to raise ambition and meet this moment. That's the only way for the world to succeed together.
This is how we solve the climate crisis. Together.
哦，你是说这里啊？哦，还是没有声音。
Please welcome the President and the Vice President of the United States.
Your Excellencies, distinguished leaders, and esteemed colleagues from around the world. Welcome to this historic Leaders Summit on Climate. I want to thank you for being here and for your leadership. I have spoken with a number of you about the climate crisis. We have talked about the scarcity of water. We have talked about the need to build resilience. And we have talked about the importance of investing in clean technologies. Together, of course, we come from very different places, but we share this common concern and this common threat. Here in the United States, the storms hitting our Gulf Coast are worst every year. The wildfires in my home state of California have grown in intensity. And of course, no nation or region is immune. Whether it is Western Europe, where heat waves have made it very difficult to stay indoors while risking a health risk, or the Pacific Islands, where rising sea levels threaten to encroach on the land and homes of lifelong residents. Or in Central America, where last year, two major hurricanes devastated entire communities. As a global community, it is imperative that we act quickly and together to confront this crisis. And this will require innovation and collaboration around the world. It will require the use of renewable energy and new technologies. And it will give each of our nations the opportunity to build healthier communities and stronger economies. Here we believe tackling climate change, improving communities and creating jobs can occur simultaneously. And we must recognize the importance, of course, of justice in the work that we do. The communities hardest hit by climate change are the same communities harmed by wealth and gender inequality, toxic air pollution, and so much more. This truth holds around the world. So I urge all of us to focus on these communities, including indigenous communities, and consider their insight and experience in our efforts moving forward. They are critical leaders in this fight. Friends, the health of our communities, the well-being of our workers, and the strength of our economies depend on what we do now. And I can think
现在有两个声音叠在一起，网友一直在说，
to achieving
可能要有一边的声音要关掉。我先听网络的声音。
The president was one of the first members in the United States Congress to take on the issue of climate change. And on our first day in office, he led the fact that we would rejoin the Paris Agreement. And the president is just getting started as we work to tackle this crisis while creating clean energy jobs across our nation. It is now my great honor to introduce the President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Good morning to all our colleagues around the world leaders for taking part in this summit. I thank you. Your leadership on this issue is a statement to the people of your nation and the people of every nation, especially our young people that were ready to meet this moment. And meeting this moment is about more than preserving our planet, providing a better future for all of us. That's why when people talk about climate, I think jobs. When our climate response lies in the extraordinary engine of job creation and economic opportunity. Ready to fire it up. That's why I've proposed a huge investment in American infrastructure and American innovation to tap the economic opportunity that climate change presents our workers and our communities, especially those too often that have left out and left behind. I want to build a critical infrastructure to produce and deploy clean technology, both those we can harness today and those that we'll invent tomorrow. I talk to the experts and I see the potential for a more prosperous and equitable future. The signs are unmistakable. The science is undeniable. But the cost of inaction keeps mounting. The United States isn't waiting. We are resolving to take action. Not only our federal government, but our cities and our states all across our country. Small businesses, large corporations, American workers in every field. I see an opportunity to create millions of good-paying, middle-class union jobs.
好，现在呢，看到的就是拜登，美国总统拜登已经出现在这个气候峰会的现场发表演说，一起来听一下他的最新演说。
Capping hundreds of thousands of abandoned oil and gas wells that need to be cleaned up and abandoned coal mines that need to be reclaimed, putting a stop to the methane leaks and protecting the health of our communities. I see auto workers building the next generation of electric vehicles and electricians installing nationwide for 500,000 charging stations along our highways. I see the engineers and the construction workers building new carbon capture and green hydrogen plants.
对于这个气候变迁的问题呢，拜登的意思是说，除了政府之外呢，除了联邦政府之外呢，包括了州政府、地方政府的人呢，都可以一起来尽一份的力量。
To make soil of our heartland the next frontier in carbon innovation. By maintaining those investments and putting these people to work, the United States sets out on the road to cut greenhouse gases in half by the end of this decade. That's where we're headed as a nation.
好了，那么其实今天呢，拜登举行这一场这个气候的峰会哦，他是一共邀请了大概有40国的这个领袖一起来透过视讯的方式来参加。那当中也包括了这个有俄罗斯的总统普丁以及大陆国家主席习近平，也都会在参与这个会议，透过视讯的方式。那么主要呢，大家都要讨论的就是关于要如何来因应这个全球暖化的问题、气候变迁的问题。
All of us, and particularly those of us who represent.
那么根据今天这个 CNN 还有《华尔街日报》的报道呢，这个拜登预计呢会在这个会议当中上头讲到的呢，就是关于他有可能会承诺说，这个美国要在2030年之前呢，把这个美国国内的碳排放量削减到大概是50%到52%左右。那么有意呢，要在这个美中关系如此紧张的时刻，尽量维护美国在这个气候问题上面全球领导的一个地位。
Because scientists tell us that this is the decisive decade. This is the decade we must make decisions that will avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis. We must try to keep the Earth's temperature to an increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. You know, the world beyond 1.5 degrees means more frequent and intense fires, floods, droughts, heat waves, and hurricanes, tearing through communities, ripping away lives and livelihoods. Increasingly, dire impacts to our public health. It's undeniable, you know, the idea of accelerating and punishing the reality that will come if we don't move. We can't resign ourselves to that future. We have to take action.
拜登认为说呢，现在就是时刻，大家要来面对这个气候变迁的问题哦，还有全球暖化的问题。
We'll travel together, God willing, all of us, to and through Glasgow this November and the UN Climate Change Conference.
这个每年呢，这个温度再上升1.5度啊，就是会造成了很多干旱的问题，或是呢再发生火灾的问题。
The well-being of our workers depends on it. The strength of our economies depends on it. The countries that take decisive action now to create the industries of the future will be the ones that reap the economic benefits of the clean energy boom that's coming. You know, we're here at this summit to discuss how each of us, each country, can set higher climate ambitions.
拜登认为呢，这个他举办的这个峰会呢，就是针对全球要来因应这个气候暖化问题的第一步，就是他举行了这个峰会。
Adapt to climate impacts. We have to move. We have to move quickly to meet these challenges. The steps our countries take between now and Glasgow will set the world up for success. To protect livelihoods around the world and keep global warming at a maximum of 1.5 degrees Celsius. We must get on the path now in order to do that. If we do, we'll breathe easier, literally and figuratively. We'll create good jobs here at home for millions of Americans and lay a strong foundation for growth for the future. And that can be your goal as well. This is a moral imperative, an economic imperative, a moment of peril, but also a moment of extraordinary possibilities. Time is short, but I believe we can do this. And I believe that we will do this. Thank you for being part of this summit. Thank you for the communities that you and the commitments you have made and the communities you're from. God bless you all. And I look forward to progress that we can make together today and beyond. We really have no choice. We have to get this done.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are so grateful to have all of you with us today. As President Biden and Vice President Harris have made clear, this administration intends to do more than any in U.S. history to meet the climate crisis. What the United States can do at home to make a significant contribution toward keeping the Earth warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's why we're raising our ambitions, as the President described, and we will meet the new targets we set. But of course, no country can overcome this existential threat alone. We're in this together. And what each of our nations does, or does not do, will not only impact people of our own country,
好，现在看到的呢，
but
就是这个
people
美国的国务
everywhere.
卿布林肯来上场发
Many
表
of
他的
us,
演说。
perhaps all of us, feel a strong sense of urgency. That's why we're here. We hope
布
that
林
will
肯当然
translate
也
into
强调
making
了，
the
在
progress
这个拜登的
necessary
新政
during
府
this
当中
critical
呢，
year
对气候危
and
机做
over
了更
this
多的
decisive
事
decade.
情。
The consequences of falling short are clear. Every one of our countries is already experiencing the impact of climate change.
他说，当然他们
And
也会
they'll
达到他的目
only get
标。
worse. More frequent and more intense storms, longer dry spells,
没有任何一个国家可以
bigger
单独
floods,
达到就是解
more people
决气候
displaced,
变
more
迁的这个问题。当然，大家要一
higher
起合
health
作。
costs. And climate change can drive the spread of disease, food insecurity, mass migration, and conflict. All of these consequences are hitting underserved and marginalized communities in our countries the hardest. And some countries are experiencing much more severe impacts than others, something we must acknowledge and address. But, as the President said, it would be a mistake to think about climate only
当然，
through
现
the
在
prism
每个国家、
of
世界
threats.
各地的国家、地
As we
区
take
都
concrete
已经
actions
感
to
受到
reduce
了这气候
emissions
变迁所带来
and
的
prepare
影
for the
响了，
unavoidable impacts of climate
像
change,
是洪水
we have an
啦、有
opportunity,
干旱
an
啦、
opportunity
有
to
污
create
染
sustainable,
啦。
good-paying jobs, to promote not only greater growth, but greater equity, and to provide
而
sustainable,
且这个气候变迁的
reliable,
问题也会影
affordable
响
access
到
to
大
energy
家，就
to more
是这
people,
个疾病
which
会
is
更加
crucial
的
to
恶
every
化。
aspect of human development. So we're rooting for every country, every business, every community around the world to succeed in this effort.
甚至在许多国
In
家，
that
这个
spirit,
情况是更加
as
的
other
严重。
countries strive to meet and raise their climate targets, the United States will mobilize resources, institutional knowledge, and technical expertise from across our government, the private sector, civil society, and research universities to help. We want every country here to know we want to work with you to save our planet, and we're all committed to finding
但是
every
现在呢，大家
possible
是有机
avenue
会
of
可以来
cooperation
改善这个
on
现象，
climate.
改善这个
If we work
这个
together,
这个
we
气
can
候
do
变
more
迁的
than just
问题
address
的
this。crisis. We can turn it into an opportunity to improve our societies and deliver for people worldwide. And we can lay the foundation for cooperation on other shared challenges.
所以当然
There
呢，
are
这次这
many
个峰会，
issues
大家
on
就
which
要
we
来
don't
讨论
all
说，
see
那我
eye
们
to
是要
eye.
如何来制定一
This
些
isn't
规
one of
范
them.
啦，来限制
No
大
matter
家要
what
如
no matter
何
what
比
country
方
we're
说这个
from,
碳排放量
we
啦，
know
应
the
该要
world that
如
we
何
want to
来
pass
制定
on
一
to
个
our
新的
children
标准。
and our grandchildren. I can think of no better or more urgent cause to bring us together. It's now my honor to call on His Excellency, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres.
布林肯是一直在强调说，希望各国之间可以大家一起来合作，面对因应这个气候变迁的危机。
You have started this summit by walking the talk, and I applaud the commitment of the United States to cut greenhouse gas emissions 50 to 52% below 25 levels by 2030. Mother Nature is not waiting. The past decade was the hottest on record. Dangerous greenhouse gases are at levels not seen in 3 million years. Global temperature has already risen 1.2 degrees Celsius, racing towards the threshold of catastrophe. Meanwhile, we see ever-rising sea levels, scorching temperatures, devastating tropical cyclones, and epic wildfires. We need a green planet, but the world is on red alert. We are at the verge of the abyss. We must make sure the next step is in the right direction. Leaders everywhere must take action. First, by building a global coalition for net zero emissions by mid-century, every country, every region, every city, every company, and every industry. Second, by making this a decade of transformation. All countries, starting with major emitters, should submit new and more ambitious nationally determined contributions for mitigation, adaptation, and finance, laying out actions and policies for the next 10 years aligned with the 2050 net zero pathway. Third, we need to translate those commitments into concrete immediate action. So far, only 18 to 24% of pandemic recovery spending is expected to contribute to mitigating emissions, reducing air pollution, or strengthening natural capital. The trillions of dollars needed for COVID-19 recovery.
其实联合国已经就是在日前也警告过大家说了，今年也就是2021年呢，已经就是大家必须要采取行动的一年了，要保护全世界的人类呢不受气候变迁灾难性的冲击。
To carbon and subsidies for fossil fuels, ramp up investments in renewable energy and green infrastructure, stop the financing of coal and the building of new coal power plants, and phase out coal by 2030 in the wealthiest countries and by 2040 everywhere else. Ensure a just transition for affected people and communities. Fourth, to build a truly global net zero coalition.
他说呢，今年是必须采取行动的一年哦，各个国家都必须承诺要在2050年之前呢达到这个净零排放，而且现在就需要采取行动来保护所有人类呢免于受到这个气候变迁灾难性的后果冲击。
We need concrete proposals that give access to greater finance and technological support for the most vulnerable countries. Developed states must deliver on public climate finance, including the long-promised $100 billion for climate action in developing countries at the G7 summit.
这古特瑞斯呢之前也提出了一份报告，说呢，去年就是2020年呢，虽然这个疫情大爆发哦，但是呢，2020年其实也是史上最热的一年。尽管呢，疫情影响大家的经济放缓哦，但是这个温室气体的浓度仍然是持续在增加。所以呢，古特瑞斯就说，在这人为的影响之下呢，在去年出现了这个极端天气还有气候失调，也影响到大家的生活，破坏了到大家的生计，而且呢，有数以百万计的人因此呢被迫逃离家园。刚刚也一直不断的讲到了这个气候变迁问题，也会影响到洪水的发生啦，或是干旱的发生种种的问题。所以有很多人，数以百万人计的人是被迫离开家园。当然，所以现在一定要正视这个气候变迁的问题。
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. It's now my honor to call on the President of the People's Republic of China, His Excellency Xi Jinping.
尊敬的拜登总统，尊敬的各位同事，很高兴应邀出席领导人气候峰会。气候变化给人类生存和发展人与自然
needs to come together to foster a community of life for man and nature. First, we must be committed to harmony between man and nature. All things that grow live in harmony and benefit from the nourishment of nature. Mother Nature has nourished us, and we must treat nature as our root.
好，现在呢，大家众所瞩目的大陆国家主席习近平要现身发表谈话了。
We should protect nature and preserve the environment like we protect our eyes. Second, we must be committed to green development. Green mountains are gold mountains. To protect the environment is to protect productivity, and to improve the environment is to boost productivity. The truth is as simple as that. We need to make sure that a sound environment is there to buttress sustainable economic and social development worldwide. Third, we must be committed to systemic governance. Mountains, rivers, forests, as well as farmlands, lakes, grasslands, and deserts all make indivisible parts of the ecosystem. We need to properly balance all elements and aspects of nature and maintain overall balance in the ecosystem. Fourth, we must be committed to a people-centered approach. The environment concerns the well-being of people in all countries. We need to take into full account people's longing for a better life and good environment, as well as our responsibility for future generations. We need to deliver social equity and justice in the cause of green transition and increase people's sense of benefit, happiness, and security. Fifth, we must be committed to multilateralism. We need to work on the basis of international law, follow the principle of equity and justice, and focus on effective actions. We need to uphold the UN-centered international system, comply with the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and its Paris Agreement, and strive to deliver the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Sixth, we must be committed to the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. The principle of common but differentiated responsibilities is the cornerstone of global climate governance. We need to give full recognition to developing countries' contribution to climate action and accommodate their particular difficulties and concerns. Developed countries need to increase climate ambition and action and make concrete efforts to help developing countries accelerate the transition to green and low-carbon development. Not long ago, the Chinese and U.S. sides released a joint statement addressing the climate crisis. China looks forward to working with the international community
我们这个画面版权的问题是来自美国，所以美国给我们的这个版权来源，它把这个中文讲话的声音抽掉了，变成这个讲英文的部分哦。等一下我会这个同步再帮你翻译一下，但是先来听一下它的这个翻译哦，因为这个版权的问题，我们是跟着美国的这个画面一起的，所以呢，中文它把它拉掉了，我们现在也没有办法有中文给大家。但目前可以看到呢，是大陆国家主席习近平正在发表谈话。
And pursue a green and low-carbon path to development. China will strive to peak carbon dioxide emissions before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. China has committed to move from carbon peak to carbon neutrality in a much shorter time span than what might take many developed countries, and that requires extraordinarily hard efforts from China. Support is being given to encourage peaking pioneers from localities, sectors, and companies. We will strictly control coal-fired power generation projects. We will strictly limit the increase in coal consumption over the 14th five-year plan period and phase it down in the 15th five-year plan period. China will host COP15 of the Convention on Biological Diversity and support COP26 of the UNFCCC in achieving positive outcomes. China will promote joint efforts to build a green Belt and Road to benefit.
再跟大家解释一下，因为大家有很多疑问，因为通常呢，有的时候那个翻译的场合哦，他会把那个英文放在一轨，然后呢原音放在一轨，但是因为我们收到的这个外电的讯号，它只有给我们英文，所以呢，这个中文的部分没有办法播出来给大家听。但是稍晚呢，我们会有新闻的，在做新闻的时候呢，会在就是有更进一步的有中文的话呢，也会在制作在新闻当中告诉大家这个相关的内容。那接下来我要继续再来讲一下关于这个气候峰会的一些讯息。其实今天呢，这个习近平出席哦，也是昨天最后一刻呢，这个大陆外交部才放出的一个消息，确定说这个习近平他会来参加这一场气候峰会。因为在这之前，其实4月初的时候呢，拜登那时候美国政府就已经有放出消息说，哦，他们在4月22、23号的时候呢，要来举办这一场气候峰会。那当时拜登就已经亲自对这个媒体记者来讲说，他有邀请习近平，但是呢，在过去的几个礼拜的时间呢，都这个大陆方面呢都还没有确认说到底会不会出席，一直到昨天大陆外交部才放出了一个很短的消息说，哦，他确定会出席，而且会发表谈话。不过呢，据了解，这一次的这个峰会呢，并没有安排任何的这个双边会谈。也就是说呢，虽然呢他们是出席在同一场活动，就是拜登跟习近平出席在同一场活动，但是呢，他们双方并不会透过这个视讯来进行单独的谈话。
Friends, for humanity to combat climate change, concrete action is needed. We need such action at a high speed, on a large scale, and with a global scope. We in India are doing our part. Our ambitious, renewable energy target of 450 gigawatts by 2030 shows our commitment. Despite our development challenges, we have taken many bold steps on clean energy, energy efficiency, afforestation, and biodiversity. That is why we are among the few countries whose NDCs are 2 degrees Celsius compatible. We have also encouraged global initiatives like International Solar Alliance, LEAD IT, and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Friends, as a climate responsible developing country, India welcomes partners to create templates of sustainable development in India. This can also help other developing countries who need affordable access to green finance and clean technology. That is why好，
现在看到的呢是这个印度的总理莫迪在发表谈话。在他之前呢，刚刚这个大陆国家总理习近平也发表了他的谈话。那么其实呢，就是这一次大家都很关注到的，就是拜登所举办的这个气候峰会哦。当然，气候变迁是一个很重要的议题，但是大家也在看这个美中之间到底气氛是如何。本来呢是期望说两个人到底会不会有这个同台的机会，两个人是有同台，不过是透过这个视讯出席同一场活动。不过呢，据了解。这一次是不会有安排这个视讯安排双边会谈的，所以呢，他们两方也就是拜登跟这习近平两方呢是不会透过视讯来进行这个单独的会谈，只会针对这个气候议题呢各自分别发表一下演说。
It is because of our lifestyle is still
另外要讲到的事情就是说呢，其实这一次在这个气候峰会上面呢，美国。也就是拜登呢，他将会承诺在这个2030年之前呢，要让这个美国的温室气体排放量减少到50%以上，50%到52%左右。那么这一次呢，其实在这场峰会当中呢，除了刚刚看到的有这个联合国的代表之外呢，还有现在的印度总理莫迪，还有大陆国家主席习近平，另外一共是有40多国的这个国家的领导人都有被受邀出席，要探讨如何来因应这个气候变迁的危机。不过，根据这个《华盛顿邮报》的报道有引述了知情人士的说法，说呢，这个美国政府呢会先画出一个蓝图，之后呢才会再透露一个更详细的一个进程。到时候呢，如果说确认了真的是2030年要来减碳50%的话呢，那么这个排碳目标将会是这个。2015年的时候，在这个巴黎协定当中，巴黎气候协议，当时美国允诺的是这个大概是26到28左右。如果拜登现在喊出来要是到50的话呢，已经是有2倍这么多了。
Thank you very much, Tony and Your Excellencies, colleagues, friends. I'd like to begin by thanking President Biden very much for bringing us all together in the way that he has, and for setting out the problem in the eloquent way that he did at the beginning, and of course for returning United States to the
好，刚看到有网友正提到川普，正想讲到川普，因为其实呢，大家在讲说，其实这一次美国主办的这个气象峰会到底美国呢针对这气候议题做了多少呢？大家也是好像也抱持了一个质疑的态度，打上一个大大问号。因为呢，其实美国对于这个气候变迁政策一直是摇摆不定的。怎么说呢？因为其实呢，在这个奥巴马跟川普时期呢，他们两个人对于这个气候政策还有环保政策的态度呢，其实是完全不同的。因为呢，在这个奥巴马时代呢，他推出了这个洁净能源计划。不过呢，到了川普的时期，川普一声令下呢，就把这个奥巴马时代的洁净能源计划给一下就废除了。甚至呢，川普还说他要退出这个巴黎气候协定。所以呢，现在很多声浪都觉得说，是不是美国真的可以做到吗？做到这个改善气候环境吗？在退出巴黎气候协定不久之后，拜登一上任就说要重新再加入这个巴黎气候协定哦。结果昨天呢，大陆外交部也对此回应了。大陆外交部怎么说呢？蛮有意思的。大陆外交部说呢，对于巴黎协 协定哦，美国不合意就退出，合意就重返。美国回归根本不是什么王者归来嘛，而是这个翘课的学生根本就是翘课生返校。好，对于这个美国到底能不能达到这个气候变迁来解决这个问题呢？大家还是要持续的来观察。那么另外呢，大陆还有欧盟，他们过去也有自己坚持要执行的一个减碳目标。欧盟呢日前也是针对了这个新的减碳目标达成了一个协议，希望呢可以在2030年的时候呢，这个碳排放量比1990年代的时候呢减少到55%。那么在2050年的时候呢，希望可以达到这个气候中和、碳中和。那么日前其实最近这几天呢，这个大陆在举行这博鳌论坛嘛，那么大陆国家主席习近平呢就在这个博鳌论坛上面讲到说呢，他要发展绿能，而且呢是意有所指的说大国要有大国的样子呢，其实也就是在讲给美国听啦，双方频频过招嘛，也让这场峰会呢，今天的峰会也是大家也备受关注，希望可以感受一下这美中之间紧张的角力到底进行到什么样的一个阶段。而另外呢，有一个有趣的现象，想跟大家分享一下。有一个这个大陆的专家呢，他是这个大陆国家应对气候变化战略研究和这个国际合作中心研究员，他叫做李俊峰。他写了一篇文章来分析这个拜登的气候的新政策，来分析一下呢，他觉得说那个拜登的新政策到底可以走多远呢？他认为还是未知数，因为呢会面临到一些问题，这个等一下再说。不过呢，虽然说这新政策能走多远还是未知数，但是他认为说呢，新的内容是已经比这个川普时代有一些明显的进步了。那么刚刚讲到说呢，有一些未知数，为什么会遇到这些未知数呢？原因有3个层面，因为拜登政府会遇到3种不同的问题。第一个呢，就是因为美国的政府权力分散的问题。一呢，就是因为拜登跟他领导的这个联邦政府呢，在要推动他的这个气候变化问题的时候呢，必须要这个国会两院，就是参议院、众议院步调要一致才可以。另外第二点呢，就是这个美国的联邦制，让这个权力分散在这个联邦政府，就是中央政府跟这个州政府跟地方之间，权力分散了。所以呢，在这个联邦政府如果下令要在这个气候问题上有一些什么变化的话呢，还是不能左右州政府和地方政府的，所以两边其实要一致，还是需要沟通的。那么第3点呢，就是美国联邦政府内部的权力也是分散的，所以呢，拜登的决策呢，其实也没有办法直接来领导所有的联邦机构。那么他如果想要好好的解决这些气候变迁的问题呢，很迅速的话呢，其实要面临的就是这个国内自己3个不同层面的问题。
The UK has been able to cut our own CO2 emissions by about 42% on 1990 levels, and we've seen our economy grow by 73%.
现在看到画面当中呢，是英国首相强森也出席了这场会议，正在发表演说。
So let's work together on this. Let's go to Kunming in October and then Glasgow in November, armed with ambitious targets and the plans required to meet them. And let's use this extraordinary moment and the incredible technology that we're working on to make this decade the moment of decisive change in the fight against climate change, and let's do it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. And now the Prime Minister of Japan, His Excellency Yoshihide Suga. Mr. Prime Minister.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Joe, I am pleased to meet with you again. I would like to reiterate my deepest gratitude for your hospitality at the White House just a week ago. I would also like to take this opportunity to commend your leadership for holding this important summit. Extreme weather events such as torrential rains, forest fires, and heavy snowfalls are witnessed worldwide in recent years, and climate change is said to be a major cause of such events.
好，在强森之后呢，现在看到的是日本的这个首相菅义伟。
challenge which the whole of humankind should aim to solve. At the same time, our response to climate change is no longer a constraint on our economy. Rather, it will be the driving force of the long-term dynamic growth of not only Japan, but also the whole world. With this vision in mind, in the fall of last year,
其实日本最近自己的议题也是蛮多的，因为日本在日前呢也已经拍板定案，要把这个福岛核电厂的这个核废水呢，2年之后呢就要排到这个大海里头了，所以也引发了周边国家相当多的不满。
46% in the fiscal year 2030 compared to the fiscal year 2013 as an ambitious target which is aligned with the long-term goal of net zero by 2050. Furthermore, Japan will continue strenuous efforts in its challenge to meet the lofty goal of cutting its emission by 50%. Such a goal of 46% in reductions would mean that Japan will raise our current target by more than 70%, and it will certainly not be an easy task. However, by defining a top-level ambitious target appropriate for the next growth strategy of the nation which underpins global manufacturing, Japan is ready to demonstrate its leadership for worldwide decarbonization. From now on, we will accelerate our deliberations for establishing concrete measures toward achieving the target. Japan, in order to create a virtuous cycle of the economy and the environment and to grow strongly towards our ambitious goal for 2030, will work to maximize the utilization of decarbonized power sources such as renewable energy and take incentive measures sufficient for inducing investment by companies. The national and subnational governments of Japan
其实日本团结英文讲到的也是跟这个减少碳排放量有关系的一个这个理想哦，希望在未来可以达成这个目标，也为自己为日本设下了一个目标。
Innovation that will enhance production and secure sustainability in food, agriculture, and forestry sectors. Furthermore, Japan will advance the transition to a circular economy, thereby creating new industries and employment. Japan will continue its unceasing efforts toward 2030 and 2050.
Global decarbonization is what cannot be achieved by the efforts of one country alone. It is a challenge that requires the whole international community to be united as one. We can create global waves for climate change measures with ambitious targets presented and implemented by countries attending the summit today who are responsible for around 80% of global emissions, thereby overwhelming the whole world with our waves. Joe, on the occasion of my recent visit to the United States last week, I had the pleasure to confirm with you our commitment to lead the world global decarbonization efforts. In more concrete terms, Joe and I launched Japan-US Climate Partnership on Ambition, Decarbonization, and Clean Energy. Based on this partnership, Japan and the United States will work to promote worldwide decarbonization and continue cooperation in each area of the implementation of the Paris Agreement, clean energy technologies and innovation, and accelerating transition of developing countries, including Indo-Pacific countries, to a decarbonized society.
其实今天英文上的心情呢，才刚刚结束他的访美行程哦。刚刚他又在点名了拜登，对拜登讲了话，这样子。
Approximately 1.3 trillion Japanese yen, which is equivalent to approximately 11.8 billion US dollars. We announced that we will make contributions of up to $3 billion to the Green Climate Fund.
他说呢，美国跟日本会一起来合作，来达到这个减碳的行动。
By maximizing the use of Japan's leading technologies in areas such as energy efficiency, hydrogen, and CCS, carbon capture and storage.
也要帮助一些发展中的国家来达成这个减碳的目标，像是这个印度啊等等的国家，发展中的国家。
Hitting vulnerable states in the world. No other time than now does international society require further solidarity for the realization of a decarbonized society. Japan, as a nation that puts utmost importance on multilateral approaches, is determined to take the lead in solving the challenge of climate change for the whole of humankind by cooperating with each country and international organizations for the coming months leading up to COP26 and beyond. Thank you for your attention.
Pleasure to call upon the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau. Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. I want to begin by thanking President Biden for hosting this summit. Mr. President, thank you for your leadership on addressing the climate crisis and on other shared priorities, from the fight against COVID-19 to building a strong middle class. I'm encouraged.
好，今天非常谢谢大家在线上观赏我们的这一个气候峰会的特别报道，感谢大家同时间来上线关注。详细呢，后面还会有更多相关的报道，请大家锁定我们中天频道，感谢大家。
Our collective commitment to human rights and stand up for people who face persecution abroad. Our collective success depends on finding a better path, not only to a more sustainable future, but to shared peace and prosperity for everyone.